Hello, Judge Martin. Utabum, one of your fellow earthlings whom you evicted out of my 42-year homestead as a supposed tenant. You swindled me out of a jury trial. Don't you know in America somebody is entitled to a jury trial? And evicting me as a tenant? Even if I had been a tenant, don't you know that in Texas only the Justice Court of the precinct can do eviction? Something about this stinks, Mr. Martin. But let us go back and let's try to see if I can describe this in a coherent manner. This thing, the way I look at it, is something like a mystery, a murder mystery. But in a murder mystery, we know what happened. Yeah, somebody got murdered. And the mystery is who did it. But this is somewhat different in the sense, in this case, we know who did it. We know the consequences, we know all the players. But the mystery is more like, how did they do it? What went wrong? Let me kind of look at the approach that I'm going to take right here. And I come back to how to untie this mess. When it's sort of like one is unable to see the forest for all the trees. So if one starts at looking at the details, one never gets the big picture, and we can't get to the big picture without the details. So I'm going to take an approach somewhat like, I hate to come back to history, but Alexander the Great and the Gordian knot, where everybody tried to untie this thing, and Alexander's approach was take a sword and cut right through it and figure out what's going on the inside and pick up the pieces. What I'm going to try to do here, and forgive my approach, is to simply smash this thing into pieces and see what's inside of it. So as a starter, I'm just going to break this down into about 3 or 4 pieces, address them individually and come back to them. But let me start out, let's look at the pieces. There's of course the underlying plot that somebody did something. And the underlying plot is one of somebody writing up a deed and selling it to somebody, land that they didn't own, motive, opportunity, and means, and the profit. So it's the underlying stuff of somebody simply taking a piece of paper and selling somebody property that they did not own, expecting me to be a feeble old fuddy-duddy, and more or less selling this piece of paper off to somebody else and flipping the property. I'll come back to some more. This is the first one, the underlying stuff of somebody selling something that they claimed to have inherited but didn't have inherited, never could show deeds or change of deeds. That's number one. The second part has to do with what should have happened upon something like this. And that's the role of the courts. The role of the courts is to catch crooks, to find out who's lying. And the way we do that in America is to have a trial and to confront your accuser and assume the jury can sort of punch through all this lying. But, Mr. Martin, You swindled me out of a trial on this one. So the second part, one has to know something about the details of the court process as to what should happen and what didn't happen. So number one, the underlying scheme. Number two, the court process that should have occurred. Number three is the intermediate things that went on in the courts, the details of the stuff as this thing sort of started to unravel. That's number three. And then the fourth one is after somebody, both the court and the attorneys realized that there is something wrong in this one, and then somebody panicked and they went back to a plan that they had in the beginning of just simply running over me, and they ran over me. So number one is the plot. Number two is the court process that should have happened but didn't. Number three is the intermediate maneuvering that made it clearer and clearer that something was stinking. And the number four one was Mr. Martin and everybody else essentially sending the sheriff officers out over here and do away or dispose of this turbulent priest. Remember the murder of the Archbishop of Edinburgh. Will not someone rid me of this turbulent priest? So one, the plot, what was expected to happen, which didn't happen. Number two, the court process that should have taken place, but didn't. Number three, the intermediate stuff in the court that sort of brought out the stink. And then somebody basically panicking, and because they didn't really knew the law, didn't do more stupid, basically went out and told 8 officers to come out there and take care of Mr. Birnbaum. And then the final thing is I'm going to discuss somewhat the aftermath of this thing to reflect on where I am right now and come back to it. I'm at the moment sitting here, almost no resources, had a stroke, got a speech problem, got a hearing problem, but determined to fight this thing. Mr. Martin, may I forever be an albatross around your neck. And with this, I'm going to hit the next phase, which is to describe a little bit more detail. I think I'll go on what should have happened in the court to lay the groundwork as to what somebody was planning. So much for this right now. Forget the mannerism. I got a fan blowing on me because we have no air conditioners over here. My body is slow. My mind is, I think, stable. Else as crazy as it's always been. But anyhow, Mr. Martin, you had the opportunity to choose right, and you chose evil. And may I forever be an albatross around your neck. So help me God. Amen. Thank you.